Very exciting.
When's the
I
next
haven't already
Jewish
made a blessing
holiday?
before.
Oh,
Sorry?
excuse me. I just said, when's the next Jewish holiday?
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
But other than Shabbos, this week's this Shabbos is going to be the Shabbos before my mother's yard site. As I mentioned, we're going to be having a minyan, God willing, and a nice kiddush in loving memory of my mother. Um, and then the next holiday on the calendar is some sad holidays coming up, the 17th of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av.
Right.
Um, okay, let's jump right in. Today, we have some very exciting stuff to learn. We're going to be continuing with some stories. We're going to be finishing this chapter of the Talmud, beginning the next chapter. And we have some exciting and interesting lessons to learn. And we'll see if we're going to get to the part. There's a part that I didn't understand fully myself. So we're going to have to learn it together. Perhaps you guys will help me. And we'll see if we get up to it. So we're going to finish off this Mishnah that Rabbi Chia bar Abba said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. All of the prophets only prophesied their prophecies of consolation with regard to penitence. But with regard to the full-fledged righteous, it is stated, no eye has seen it, God, aside from you. So let me ask you this. Whose reward is greater, the righteous or the penitent?
The penitent.
Let's read this once again. Rabbi Chia bar Abba said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, all of the prophets only prophesied their prophecies of consolation with regard to penitence. But with regard to the full-fledged righteous, it is stated, no eye has seen it, God, aside from you.
Did I get it wrong? I picked the one that seemed less obvious.
Ah, okay. Well, according to this opinion, you got it wrong. Because what does he say? He says the prophecies that the prophets told us are all the blessings that will come to the penitents, to the Baal Tshuva, those who have returned from their wayward ways, wayward paths. But the blessings and the reward that will come to those who are righteous from birth, it is stated, no eye has seen it, God, aside from you. Which means that the reward that will come to those who never sinned is much greater because nobody has seen it, nobody has even prophesied about it. God is the only one who knows the reward. The Gemara notes that this statement disagrees with the opinion of Rabbi Abahu. Rabbi Abahu holds that penitents are superior to the righteous. As Rabbi Abahu said, in the place where penitents stand, even the full-fledged righteous cannot stand. As it is stated, peace, peace upon him who is far and him who is near. Peace and greeting is extended first to him who is far, which is the penitent, and only thereafter is peace extended to him who is near, the full-fledged righteous. So someone who has tasted the taste of sin, or who has been distant from God, and then changes their ways to come close to God, is greeted before the one who was always close to God. But Rabbi Yochanan can answer that that verse does not disprove his opinion. Rabbi Yochanan could have said to you, what is the meaning of him who is far? This refers to the full-fledged righteous, who was distant from an act of transgression from the outset. And to him, peace is extended first. What is meant by he who is near? This refers to the penitent who was close to the acts of transgression, but has now distanced himself from it, and to whom peace is extended only after it has been extended to him who has been righteous from the outset. So he reads the verse differently. He says, peace, peace to the one who is far and the one who is near. First, we're giving peace to the one who is far from sin, and then we're giving peace to the one who is near from sin.
I see.
Earlier, Rabbi Yochanan said that there is a reward referred to in the verse, no eye has seen it. So he said, right? There is a reward, whether it's in the times of Mashiach or whether it's to the sorry, the righteous who has never sinned. And he said, no eye has seen it. That's what the verse says. So the question is that the Gemara asks, what is this reward about which it is said, no eye has seen it? Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, that is referring to the wine that has been preserved in its grapes since the 6 days of creation and which no eyes has ever seen. We have a tradition passed down from generation to generation that when God created the world, there were 3 special things that he created that we will enjoy when Mashiach comes. Number 1 is special wine that has been fermenting in the grapes since the 6 days of creation. Number 2 is the Leviathan in Hebrew. I think they call it's the Leviathan in English, right?
What
Leviathan,
what is the Leviathan, a whale?
a huge fish,
Mm-hmm.
which God created male and female, and then God took the male, I think, and pickled it, preserved it for the righteous for the world to come when Mashiach comes. And the wild ox, the Shor Habar, the wild ox, which is also a mammoth of an animal, a huge animal, and the Medrash tells us of a fight, a war that will happen between the Leviathan and this ox, in which the Leviathan will slaughter the ox with its fin, and the ox will gore and kill the Leviathan, and then we will and God will cook it for us, and we'll have a great big barbecue. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said that this reward that no one has ever seen refers to the grapes, the wine, which has been fermented in his grapes, in the grapes. Now, let me ask you a question. What do you think that may be a metaphor for what do you think might be the deeper explanation of this wine that is kept inside its grapes?
Does it refer to the people who were righteous and kept the Torah?
That's nice, but over here we're referring to a reward. What would be the reward?
That you can go to heaven and be with God.
Okay. So one of the symbolisms here, wine represents secrets. We all know when wine comes in, secrets come out. So wine represents secrets. And this reward represents the secrets of the Torah that God will reveal to us when Mashiach comes, that we have not yet been privy to. So that was Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, this is the reward, is the grapes, the wine that has been preserved in its grapes. And since the wine is within the grapes, it's not possible for anyone to have ever seen the wine. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani said, no. This is Eden, which no creature's eye has ever surveyed. Do you have any questions on that?
No, but I was right, wasn't I? Heaven. A
Yeah, yeah,
return.
yeah. In heaven when Mashiach comes. So, um, where was Adam?
He was in the Garden of Eden.
In the Garden of Eden. So how could Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani say that no eye has seen Eden if that's where Adam was?
Oh,
But
I see. It says Adam was only in the Garden of Eden and not in
oh,
Eden
so
itself.
lest you will say, where was Adam the first man? Wasn't he there? Didn't he survey Eden? The Gemara responds, Adam was only in the Garden of Eden, not in Eden itself. Unless you will say that is the garden and that is Eden. It's the same place. You call it the Garden of Eden, or you could call it Eden. It's the same place. The Gemara says that cannot be the case because the verse says a river went out from Eden to water the garden. So from here we see that the garden is on its own, the Garden of Eden, and Eden is separate. Adam only got to see Eden, but the garden remained aloof even from him. Having mentioned Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa in our Mishnah, the Gemara proceeds to further praise the efficacy of his prayer. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa was phenomenal sage. And we're going to learn more about him later, but we're going to learn a little bit about him now. Having mentioned Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa in our Mishnah, the Gemara proceeds to further praise the efficacy of his prayer. The sages taught there was an incident that Rabban Gamliel's son fell ill. Rabban Gamliel dispatched two scholars to Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa to pray for mercy and healing on his behalf. When Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa saw them approaching, he realized what they were there for. He went up to the attic on the roof of his house and prayed for mercy on behalf of the son of Rabban Gamliel. Upon his descent to the messenger, he said to the messengers, "You may go and return to Rabban Gamliel, for the fever has already left his son and he has been healed." The messengers asked him, "How do you know? Are you a prophet?" He replied to them, "I am neither prophet nor the son of a prophet, but I have received a tradition with regard to this indication. If my prayer is fluent in my mouth as I recite it, and there are no errors, I know that my prayer is accepted. And if not, I know that my prayer is rejected." The Gemara relates that these messengers sat and wrote down the exact time, the precise moment when Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa told them this. So they looked at the sun, they looked at the stars, or whatever it was, and they figured out exactly what time of the day it was. When they came before Rabban Gamliel and related all that had happened, then showed him what they had written about the timing. Rabban Gamliel said to them, "I swear by the temple service that in the exact time that you wrote, you were neither earlier or later. Rather, this is how the event transpired. Precisely at this moment, his fever broke, and he asked us for water to drink. The exact time that Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa prayed for him, he was healed." There was another incident involving Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, who went to study Torah before Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the leader of the Jewish people at the time, and Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa went to study Torah by him. And Rabbi Yochanan's son fell ill. He said to his student, "Chanina, my son, pray for mercy on behalf of my son so that he will live." Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa placed his head between his knees in order to meditate and prayed for mercy upon his behalf. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's son lived. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said about himself, "Had Ben Zakkai stuck his head between his knees throughout the entire day, they would have paid him no attention. But look at Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, that he prays and he's answered straight away." His wife heard this, and his wife got all offended for him. His wife said, "Is Rabbi Chanina greater than you?" And he said, "No, calm down. But his prayer is better received than my own, because he is like a servant before the king. And as such, the janitor gets to sweep in the room. He gets to come in whenever he wants to sweep. And when he's in front of the king, he can make various requests at all times. I, on the other hand, am like a minister before the king, and I can only enter when invited and can make requests only with regard to especially significant matters." So she calmed down. Continuing on the topic of prayer, Rabbi Chia bar Abba said, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, one may only pray in a house which has windows, as then he can see the heavens and focus his heart. As it is stated with regard to Daniel's prayer, in his attic there were open windows facing Jerusalem. With regard to the appropriate place to pray, Rav Kahana said, "I consider it a chutzpah, somebody who prays in the field." Employing parallel language, Rav Kahana also said, "I consider it a chutzpah, someone who specifies his transgressions." As it is stated, happy is he whose iniquity is forgiven. So whose iniquities are forgiven, whose transgression is covered over. So really what the verse means is, praised is the one whose iniquity is forgiven. Praised is the one whose transgression gets covered over by God, that God doesn't look at it. But he's translating this to mean, happy is he whose iniquity is forgiven. So who is the one that gets their sins forgiven is the one whose transgression is covered over, the one who conceals his transgression, indicating that he is ashamed of them. And due to his shame, he will be forgiven. As opposed to someone who goes around boasting about all the sins that they have accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
May we return unto thee, one must not stand. We have finished another chapter. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
We now conclude the section on prayer, and we begin too the section on blessings over food. Says the Mishnah. The Mishnah is going to discuss the blessings that are recited over the various different kinds of food. How does one recite the blessing over fruits? Well, depends what kind of fruits they are. If they're fruits that grow in a tree, one recites who creates fruit of the tree, with the exception of wine. Although wine is produced from the fruit of the tree, due to its significance, its blessing differs from other fruits of the tree. So for all fruit, we say who creates fruit of the tree, borei peri ha'etz, except for wine, which has its special blessing. Over wine, one recites who creates fruit of the vine. Over fruits that grow out of the earth, one recites who creates fruit of the ground, borei peri ha'adama, with the exception of bread. Bread is significant, and its blessing differs from other fruits of the ground. And what blessing do we make over bread?
What do you call it?
Hamotzi.
I was going to say hamotzi.
Yeah, very good. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, who bring forth bread from the earth. What about herbs and leafy vegetables? Over here we have a disagreement. The first author here in the Mishnah writes that one recites over herbs and leafy vegetables the same blessing as one recites over potatoes and other fruits from the ground. You know what they say about the difference between being smart and being wise?
What?
Sorry, the difference between knowledge and wisdom. What's the difference between knowledge and wisdom? Knowledge is to know that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not to put it in a fruit salad. But according to Jewish tradition, both tomatoes, sorry, not both tomatoes. According to Jewish tradition, tomatoes would be a vegetable. Over herbs and leafy vegetables, one recites who creates fruit of the ground. Rabbi Yehuda said we make a different blessing for herbs and leafy vegetables because we could distinguish between vegetables that grow from the earth, like, for example, potatoes and tomatoes and cucumbers and melons and all those kind of things, are very different than herbs and leafy vegetables, right? Lettuce and kale, although they are all fruit of the ground, since they have different qualities, the blessing on herbs and leafy vegetables is, blessed are you, the Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates various kinds of herbs. Okay, so the Gemara is going to first figure out, how do we know that you're supposed to make a blessing to begin with, right? The Mishnah took it for granted that we're making blessings over our food. Says who? Where do we get that information from?
God tells us to.
Where?
God?
Where does it say that?
I don't know.
Okay, glad you're here. The only blessing that we find in the 5 books of Moses is that after we eat bread and we are satisfied, we have to make the grace after meals. But for a blessing before meals, we don't have any indication, clear indication in the Torah. So now the Gemara is going to begin the discussion by looking at where do we find the source, how are we going to, where do we find the source for making blessings? Concerning the fundamental basis for blessings, the Gemara asks, from where are these matters derived? The obligation to recite a blessing before eating, where do we know it? So here we're going to need a little bit of background to understand. Let us go first to Leviticus, chapter 19. Do you see my page?
It starts at 21.
Right. So we're going to look at verse 23. Would you like to read for us verses 23 and 24?
When you come to the Lord and you plant
When
any
you come to
fruit,
the
land,
land.
and you plant any fruit tree, you will surely block its fruit from use. It shall be blocked from use for 3 years, not to be eaten.
Thank you. So whenever you plant a fruit tree, the first 3 years, you're not allowed to eat the fruits of the tree.
Is there a reason?
The reason is because God said so.
Oh, okay. And in the 4th year, all fruit shall be holy, a praise to the Lord.
Okay. So here comes the question. What do you think that verse 24 means?
That when you make the blessing, it praises God who created it.
Okay, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. But just like in the simple meaning, what are you supposed to do with the fruit of the fourth year if you look just at this verse?
You're supposed to bless it.
Are you allowed to eat it?
Yes.
But it says that the fruits should be holy, the fruits are sanctified.
Doesn't it become holy when you bless it?
Good question. Let's look at verse 25.
And in the 5th year you may eat its fruit. Do this in order to increase its produce for you. I am the Lord your God.
So in the 5th year, you're allowed to eat its fruit. What about the 4th year?
No,
You say no.
I'm mixed up now.
Confusing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So in the first 3 years, you're not allowed to eat it. The 5th year and on, you are allowed to eat it. But what about the 4th year? What happens there? All we know is that the fruit has to be holy. Does that mean you're not allowed to eat it? Does that mean you are allowed to eat it?
I
So
think you have
let's
to do
look at
the blessing.
Maimonides. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was saying you have to bless it.
So we are going to learn from here something about blessings, but let's look over here at Maimonides. The produce of the 4th year. Do you see that here?
Yeah, I have to put my glasses on.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, should I make it a little bigger or it's good?
No, that's okay.
The produce of the 4th year is holy, as the verse states, and in its 4th year, all of its produce shall be holy, consecrated unto God. What does it mean that it should be holy? The law applying to it is that it must be eaten in Jerusalem by its owners, in the same way as the second tithe. So what it means that it has to be holy is that you have to bring it, all the fruits from the 4th year, you bring it to Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem you eat it. That's what it means that the fruit shall be holy.
I see.
The
Why
reason
don't the
why I'm
rules apply in Syria? And why do they mention Syria?
very good question. I'm going to get there in a moment. But the first thing that I want to tell you is that the reason why I'm getting so long-winded into this discussion is because it will become very relevant soon. But before we look at all the intricacies of the verse that we're going to discuss, let's first understand what does it mean, this whole idea of the fruits of the 4th year. Just as the laws of the second tithe do not apply in Syria, so too the laws of Netaravai, which is the fruit of the 4th year, does not apply in Syria. So Syria is very interesting. We know that there are certain laws that apply to Jews wherever they live. There are certain agricultural laws, certain laws that apply only within Israel. But there are some laws that they extended from Israel into Syria at the time when a lot of Jewish people were living in Syria. So there was an overflow from Israel into Syria. The Jewish people were living in Israel at the time. The temple was standing, but there were many Jews who lived in Syria, across the border. It wasn't called Israel, it was called Syria, but that was where they lived. So there were certain agricultural laws that applied in Syria as well. And Maimonides is teaching us here that the fruit of the fourth year does not, the law about the fruit of the fourth year does not apply in Syria. In Syria, if you would like to eat the fruit of the fourth year, you're welcome to eat it. The first 3 years you may not eat it, but in the fourth year, if you live in Syria, you are allowed to eat the fruit.
Is that because God says so?
Yeah.
Uh,
With regard to the fruit of the fourth year, the verse states, a person's consecrated property shall be his. For there is no other consecrated property about which the Torah does not inform to whom it should be given, with the exception of netar avai, these fruits of the fourth year. What does that mean? Usually, if there is something that is holy or something that is consecrated, you have to give it to the temple or give it to the Kohen. The fruits of the fourth year of the tree belong to the owner, and he eats them. What happens if you don't want to travel to Jerusalem? You have all these fruits and you don't want to travel to Jerusalem. What do?
you go to Syria?
Okay, well, that's if you want to plant your fields. You plant your fields in Syria, you don't have to do it. But what happens if you already have your fields?
I
They're in
don't.
Jerusalem the first 3 years, you didn't eat the fruit, and now, I don't know, the your wagons are in the repair shop and you don't want to go to Jerusalem, you want to just eat here. So there's something called redemption. A person who desires to redeem neta ravoi should redeem it in the same manner which he redeems the produce of the second tithe. If he redeems it for his own self, he must add a fifth to its value. And let's skip the rest of it. All the way to the bottom. With regard to other matters, eating, drinking, and redemption, the laws that apply to these fruits of the fourth year apply to the second tithe. Let me close that.
What is the second tithe?
The second tithe we can learn about another time, we will learn about later, is that a person would have to take first the truma and then the meiser. So there were two tithes that a person would give. One tithe would go to the Levite. So first he would take one 40th or 50th or 60th, depending on his mood, and give it to the Kohen. Then he would take 10% and give it to the Levite. Then he would take its second tithe, and depending on which year in the cycle we're in, the produce of the second tithe would go to somewhere else. In years, we have 7-year cycles. In the seventh year, the land must remain fallow, so you can't do any harvesting. So there's no tithing in the seventh year. So you have years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in every 7-year cycle. In the first, second, fourth, and fifth year, that second tithe goes with the owner to Jerusalem. That's called the second tithe. In the third year and in the sixth year, instead of the owner taking the second tithe to Jerusalem, the second tithe gets given to the poor people. I hope this is not an overload of information.
It's a lot of information.
So let's go, let's discuss the, let me stop the share for a moment and let's discuss the, oh, where is this? To do that. Okay. When it comes to redemption, what does redemption mean? If the person does not want to eat all of their fruits in Jerusalem, doesn't want to take their fruits to Jerusalem, they have the option to redeem that food for money. So let's say they have $100 worth of apples that grew on this tree and it's at the fourth year. So either they can sell them to someone else who's on their way up to Jerusalem, say, hey, buy my apples, and that he will sell these fruits um, to someone else who's going up to Jerusalem. Or he himself can buy them from himself. If he himself is buying them from himself, then he has to pay an extra 25%,
Who?
the owner.
Uh-huh.
So let's say the owner has $100 worth of apples. He takes $125 and puts them in a special bag. These apples now he can do with as he pleases. And then he takes that bag of money to Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem he spends that money on food and drink, rejoicing and making merry in kosher ways with friends and family. That's what it means to redeem the fruits. To redeem the fruits means to put money instead. You get to eat the fruits. The money has to be taken to Jerusalem and spent on edible food and drink in Jerusalem. So now let's go back to the verse and see what we said. Where is this? Okay. So let's start again from the beginning of the Talmud. Concerning the fundamental basis for blessings, the Gemara asks, from where are these matters, the obligation to recite a blessing before eating, derived? The Gemara answers, as the sages taught in the Sifra. With regard to saplings, it is stated that in their 4th year their fruit will be sanctified for praises before the Lord. What does it mean, sanctified for praises before the Lord? It's sanctified for the Lord. Why are we saying praises? And also, why do we say praises in plural? This verse teaches that they require praise of God in the form of a blessing before and afterwards. And that's why the verse says praises in the plural. From here, Rabbi Akiva said, a person is forbidden to taste anything before he recites a blessing, as without reciting praise over food, it has the status of a consecrated item from which one is forbidden to derive pleasure. Everything in this world belongs to God, and if you wish to enjoy anything and benefit from anything of this world, you must first make a blessing, in that way redeeming it from its sake of consecration and allowing it to enter into becoming beneficial for human beings and into the enjoyment of human beings. So basically, the way that we buy our food from God is with blessings.
Is what?
Our food belongs to God, and when we make a blessing, that's the way we buy it from God.
I see.
Otherwise, we're stealing from God. So we make a blessing before we eat. That is how we buy our food from God. Fair enough?
Yeah.
So from this verse, we see that or we see a hint at least,
What?
from this verse, we have a hint that it is appropriate to make a blessing before we eat. So now the Gemara is going to get into a bit of an interesting discussion over here, which I don't understand completely, and we'll work through it together and we'll see if we come to a better understanding. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay. The Gemara, the basis of this question and where the Gemara is going now, where the Talmud is going now, is that we have a general rule. If you have words that are being used to teach you something in particular, you can't use those same words to teach you something else. So we just said in the name of Rabbi Akiva, was Rabbi Akiva? Yeah,
Yes.
that these words of the 4th fruits being consecrated for God, teach me, they're consecrated for the praises of the Lord, teach me that these praises for the Lord means blessings. The Gemara is going to object and say, we need those words to teach us some other laws. So you can't use this to teach me about the laws of blessing. That part is clear and easy to understand. How the Gemara gets there and the laws in which we're going to use them for are a little bit complicated, so please bear with me, and let's see if we can get through this in the next 8 minutes that we have together. The Gemara asks, and did this verse, sanctified for praises, come for that purpose? We can't say that sanctified for praises is coming to teach you that you need to make a blessing. This verse is necessary to derive other matters. And the Gemara now is going to go on to say two different things that we learn out from this verse. One is that the merciful one, who's the merciful one?
God.
God. But when we say the merciful one, we often refer to the Torah itself.
I see.
Redeem it and then eat it.
Why do they repeat the word Hillel?
Oh, because this medrash is interpreting the word Hilul, which means praise, as Chilul. You see the dot underneath?
Oh, I see.
So they use this dot to represent the Hebrew letter Ches. So he says, don't read it as Hilul with a Hey, read it as Chilul with a Ches, which means redemption. Kodesh Chilulim la Hashem, which means that if you don't want to take it to Jerusalem, you don't have to take it to Jerusalem. You can eat it where you are. First, you have to redeem it for money, and then you can eat it. So that's one thing that we learned already from this verse. And the other matter derived from this verse is any object which is offered upon the altar and requires a song of praise while it is being offered. For example, the wine libation. The wine libation requires redemption. There are some versions of the old, what's the famous prayer books for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? The Machzer, is it Bromberg?
I don't know.
There was a famous one, and I remember looking inside it in the Yom Kippur. Instead of saying wine libation, the printing press by mistake added an S over there, and they wrote the swine libations. Yeah, bit of an issue. There was definitely no swine libations in the altar. Anyway, an object is offered, any object which is offered upon the altar and requires song of praise when it is offered, as is the case with the libation of wine, requires redemption. In other words, wine, if you want to eat it, you need to redeem it. But that which does not require a song of praise, which is all other fruits, does not require redemption. So he's saying, Kodesh Hilulim, if it's Kodesh, if it goes on the altar, and in the altar we use praise in order to sing to God. For example, when we pour wine on the altar, we sing special songs to God. That is the fruits that need to be redeemed if you want to eat them at home. But any other fruit, which does not need a song of praise when you bring it to the temple, does not require redemption. You can just eat it, and you do not need to bring it to Jerusalem. You do not need to redeem it. And how do we know that only wine receives a special song on the altar? This is in accordance with the opinion that Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani said in the name of Rabbi Yonasan. Because Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani said that Rabbi Yonasan said, from where is it derived? That one only recites a song of praise in the temple over libation of wine on the altar, as it is stated. And the vine replied, this is a verse from Judges, should I leave my wine, which gladdens God and man, and go and wave above the trees? So what did the vine mean when it said that my wine gladdens God and man? Does God sit around and drink at night, Thursday afternoons, after a long week of work? God is sitting sipping wine? I
No.
don't think so. So if wine gladdens people, well, we know how wine gladdens people. That's pretty obvious. Just look around and see. But in what way does it gladden God? Rather, derived from here that one only recites a song of praise over wine. So what does it mean that the wine makes God glad when it's offered as part of the service in the temple? In any case, we have these two laws that are derived from the verse that we quoted above. So you can't use that verse to derive the necessity of making a blessing before we eat food. If that's the case, from where then is the requirement to recite blessings derived? So we're back to square one. How do you know that we need to make a blessing? Our Mishnah took for granted that you know we have to make a blessing before we eat. And therefore, the Mishnah is only discussing which blessings do we make on which food. But the Gemara says, take a step back. Before you start telling me which blessings to make on which food, how do I know that you have to make a blessing? So we tried to bring a verse as proof that you need to make a blessing before you eat. You have to praise God before you eat, praise before and praise after. And the students in the Talmudic Academy refuted that and said, we need that verse to teach me other things. So you cannot bring that as a proof that blessings must be recited before the consumption of food. Um, I think we should pause here. It's 11:14, and the rest, the next section is a long one. So we're going to stop here. We're going to continue, God willing, next week. Next week, Tuesday. Yeah. God willing. Next week's Tuesday, same time, same place. And so far, so good. I think that
I'll,
was, I
I'll
think that was,
try to come to the service for your mother.
oh, please. Thank you. That would be wonderful. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend. God willing, we'll see you on Friday.
Thank you. I'll see you then.